Hi everyone, my name is Taylor Ojeda, and for my final presentation topic, I chose to discuss cocaine. The reason behind me choosing this topic is because over the past year or so, I've begun to see how commonly used this drug actually is, even though it is illicit. Before I was in college, I never even would have begun to think that cocaine was so commonly used, especially since it is most commonly consumed while under the influence of alcohol. So, cocaine is an extremely addictive stimulant drug that is made from the leaves on South American cocoa plants and is typically either snorted, rubbed into your gums, injected into the bloodstream, and sometimes it's even smoked. It is a central nervous system stimulant and it is used recreationally to produce an intense euphoric feeling, which is why the addict rate is so high. So, cocaine's effect on the body basically is not good. Since it is so addictive, many of those who use it for years, which create many short-term and long-term adverse effects on the body. When using the drug, it can make somebody feel restless, irritable, anxiety, paranoid, and sometimes even insomnia. It typically dilates your pupils immensely and decreases appetite. However, for users who abuse it more for longer periods of time, it can begin to cause irregular heartbeats, um, heart conditions such as cardiac arrest, convulsion strokes, and sometimes it can even lead to death. It has also led to unique respiratory syndrome and erosion of the nasal cavity due to snorting it. Some of the risks and consequences involved with doing cocaine is immense defects to our nose. Our nose is a significant part of the body because it allows us to smell, taste food, and filter the air we breathe. It can also catch dust and dirt particles that do not belong in the nose. When a person becomes addicted to cocaine, it affects the tissue in the nose directly and it can turn into coke nose, which is basically irreversible damage. The more coke a person snorts, the less time the nose has to heal and chronic irritation begins to start. This reduces blood flow to that specific area, and in order to heal it, blood needs to be circulated. Some life-changing repercussions are the upper nose palate suffering, which causes holes in the nasal cavity, and the septum eroding, which causes the ridge of the nose to buckle. When the nose buckles, this is basically called saddle nose deformity, and the cartilage and soft tissue are ultimately being destroyed when this occurs. As the nose worsens, it begins to spread to the organs and the eyes, which can cause vision damage, hearing loss, and infections to the brain and even sometimes the spine. So, what makes cocaine so addicting? Our brains naturally produce dopamine from events that we enjoy, such as exercise, eating food, and pleasurable activities. When someone snorts cocaine, it bonds to the receptors that guarantee that dopamine is not being removed as it normally would be over time. As the body uses dopamine, specialized proteins remove it from the receptors to recycle it. However, the usage of cocaine blocks those recycling proteins from accessing the dopamine, causing the effects to continue. This is what induces the euphoric feeling that people feel upon use, and the effects can hit in under a minute sometimes. So the three steps of cocaine is the first one being ingestion. When someone snorts cocaine in its powdered form, that ultimately coats the entirety of the upper nasal cavity. The second is absorption, and once coated, the mucous membranes absorb the cocaine straight into the bloodstream. And the third is when it hits your brain, and this is when the cocaine binds to the natural receptors that increase dopamine production and reduce the body's ability to recycle excess dopamine. So next, I just wanted to share this video. It basically is just the neurological effects of cocaine.
Welcome to 2-Minute Neuroscience, where I simplistically explain neuroscience topics in 2 minutes or less. In this installment, I will discuss the effects of cocaine on the brain. Cocaine is a strong stimulant that can cause a range of effects, including increased energy, alertness, and euphoria, along with an elevated heart rate and other sympathetic nervous system responses. Cocaine also has a high potential for abuse and inclines users towards compulsive administration of the drug. Although all the details of how cocaine produces its effects are not known, it is thought that the main mechanism by which cocaine acts on the brain is through the inhibition of the reuptake of neurotransmitters called monoamines. Monoamines are a group of neurotransmitters that includes dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. Reuptake is a method of removing neurotransmitters from the synaptic cleft between neurons. When reuptake is inhibited, it causes increased levels of neurotransmitters in the synaptic cleft. Cocaine inhibits reuptake by blocking the action of the proteins known as transporters that are normally responsible for it. By blocking monoamine transporters and inhibiting monoamine reuptake, cocaine causes levels of dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin to increase in the brain, enhancing the activity of these neurotransmitters at their receptors. Although cocaine increases levels of dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin, it is not very clear what the individual contribution of each of these neurotransmitters is to the effects of the drug. However, it is generally thought that cocaine's action at dopamine receptors is most important for making cocaine rewarding and promoting the compulsive use of the drug. The mesocortical and mesolimbic dopamine pathways, which are sometimes called the mesocorticolimbic dopamine pathway, are pathways that are rich in dopamine neurons. They project from a dopamine-rich region in the brainstem called the ventral tegmental area to a variety of locations in the limbic system and frontal cortex. These areas include a region called the nucleus accumbens, which is considered important to addiction and is activated whenever we do something rewarding. Thus, when someone uses cocaine, dopamine activity along the mesocorticolimbic pathway is increased, causing dopamine levels to rise in regions like the nucleus accumbens.
Okay,
Welcome to 2-Minute Neuro.
oops, sorry. So moving on from my drug topic, I wanted to talk about what I learned from AIT and how it has positively influenced my life this semester. So, the awareness integration theory has played a significant role in my personal development because it has allowed me to be able to change my mindset a lot to become more productive. I also became a lot more self aware and was able to connect more with my own behaviors as well as my emotions. AIT gave me essential tools that will help me beyond college, such as finally better understanding how to connect with my environment and relationships. Doing the AIT journals has allowed me to also better connect with a lot of feelings I have put off and gained a better understanding of how my peers, younger self, and current self think. So, the three categories that impacted my life in the journals were the three about school, mother and father, and God, higher power, and spirituality. In the journal about school, it made me realize that I've set my priorities a lot more straight because seeing where a lot of my friends are compared to me academically scares me. Doing this journal and having to look through the perspective of my peers and family motivated me a lot harder to try in school and study more to achieve my goals. The next categories I combined because the journals about father and mother both hit me very personally. Now that I do not live with them, I forget about the way they perceive me sometimes, and trying to understand their perspective on me made me want to become more successful to show them the money they put into my schooling is worth it in the end. Along with this, my past with them has been iffy, and I think that being able to put it into words finally allowed me to better understand a lot of my childhood. Finally, the journal about God, the higher power, and spirituality showed me that I have been lacking a lot in this part of my life. Since I have been in college, I've only made an effort to go to church with my parents on Easter and Christmas, when I grew up going with them typically weekly. Realizing this made me want to put more of an individual effort into either going to church again or rebuilding my relationship personally with God for my own well being. My mission statement is I am kind, outspoken, caring, generous, loving, and compassionate person who believes that all people, regardless of the harm that they do to me, deserve to be respected and valued. I'm a valuable human being. I matter, and so do all others. I feel peaceful, happy, and sometimes frustrated, but I commit to pushing myself to be the best version I can be. Um, I allow myself to have a strong work ethic, always have integrity, maintain a healthy lifestyle, and never give up on the goals that I want to achieve. So, using the SMART criteria, the first goal that I created for myself is to be able to graduate and maintain a 3.7 GPA or above in 4 years in order to prove to my parents that I am a hardworking student that wants to be successful. The next goal I have is by the summer, I want to be able to gain my real estate license and start pursuing that along with the current job I have right now. I also want to start going to work early instead of being late, as I typically have been. The last goal that I set for myself is being able to bond more with my siblings this summer instead of consuming all of my time with my friends. It's not the easiest because we all are at different stages of life, but I know that um, during the summer when I go home, I want to make more of an effort to reach out to them and check in because currently I do not. So here's my collage, and I typically based it just on some of the future goals that I have, as in I want to be successful, I want to be able to travel, and I know that I can only do that with hard work. And I put a lot of photos of my friends and my family just because they are my support system. And I know that without them, I would not be able to achieve any of these goals. And here are my references. Thank you guys for watching.